Okay, this is White Trash Cooking. I don't know what episode, some episode. And we're going to make chicken and noodles. First you get your big pot. This is my old-fashioned cast aluminum pot that I always cook soups in. And I've got it about, so far filled with water. Now I'm going to get the chicken out of the freezer. And you can see it's just a regular old big frying chicken. About, I don't know how many pounds is this. It's about 4 pounds, so it's about a 4-pound bird. Okay? And then we're going to put it in the sink. So now I have washed the chicken in the sink. You just, scrub it with some water, and you take out the innards, because there's always a bunch of, heart and gizzard and all that stuff. And I took the chicken, and I salt and pepper the water, and I put it in my pot. And whole chicken, stick in the pot, and then I'm going to let it boil until it's nice and tender and falling off the bone. Okay? So it's going to sit here for, I don't know. Okay, so here I am getting ready to make noodles. And all you need to make noodles is you need a breadboard, a bowl, some all-purpose flour, some salt, and some eggs. You take as many eggs as you want to use, 2, 3, whatever. I use 3 myself. You put them in a bowl, you whip them up real good, you add flour until it won't hold no more, you add salt, and you beat it up until it becomes a dough. But I'll show you a little bit. Okay, this is a little known trick of mine, and as you see, there's steam coming off, and the chicken has been on to boil for just a little bit, and now it's been turned down to simmer. But right about the time it gets turned down to simmer, I go and get my secret ingredient to make my broth taste better. Now, people are always saying, why does your chicken and noodles taste so much better than mine? Well, I'll tell you why. There you have it. Add some chicken bouillon to the water, and it'll make the broth taste more chickeny. See? I use Weiler's because I think it has a nice taste to it. And I just take a little spoon and I sprinkle in some chicken bouillon granules. You can use cubes too, if you want to. But I like the granule kind because, you can kind of just measure it in there. And then you just put it in there. And it'll chicken up that broth. Just a little cheat. There's another little cheat my grandma taught me, and that is you could put some yellow food coloring in there. But I don't think that's necessary. I don't need it to look all yellow. But, if you want to, you can put a drop of yellow food coloring in there, and it'll be real yellow and pretty. Just like Campbell's chicken noodle soup. Good. Okay, so as you can see, I've beaten up these eggs real nice. And there's 3 of them in there. And then I add a little bit of salt to the eggs. And then I stir it again. And I've emptied my flour into my container because it's easier to work with. And then I just start adding some flour a little bit at a time. Like that. And then I stir it. And I stir it. And I stir it until it becomes a dough. If you add too much at a time, I add a little bit at a time so that I can see it turning into a dough. You see it turning into a dough. But if you add too much, you can't add some milk. I wouldn't add water. Mix, I don't know. Add some milk for some flavoring. Or buttermilk even, if you get it. Okay, that's pretty good, but just a little bit more. If you're going to make like spatzel or something like that, it's the same recipe, only you do add milk. A lot of milk, in fact, because it's a very watery noodle. Okay, now you see how that's coming away from the sides and some of the flour is not getting into the dough? Okay, that's just about right. Okay, now I have my board all floured up and everything, and my rolling pin floured up. And now I'm going to take just a little bit of this dough, not all of it, but just a little bit, as much as I can work with. Okay, and I'm going to put it on the board, add more flour as I'm working it, okay, to make noodles. And you can just put this extra flour over to the side, because you're just going to use a little tiny bit. And Tristan, my friend Tristan, He didn't like my long noodles, but you can put this through, at this point, you can put it through a pastry machine if you've got one. I used to have one, but I gave it away. Anyway, so you're just going to roll this out, because these are homemade noodles. They don't have to look perfect. And it's still sticking, so I'm going to flour up a little bit more. I'm going to flour up my board, because it is a sticky dough. And like I said, you're going to make it take in as much flour as those eggs can handle. You know, you see how it's still sticking? Then you add more flour and you turn it again. You may think, oh my God, that didn't even look like dough. Well, it is dough. You're working, what you're doing is you're working in flour into it. Okay? See how good that's looking? Oh yeah. Because you can only work in so much flour in the bowl, because it'll stick to your fork and, you know, cause all kinds of problems. Okay. Getting there, it's still sticky. So you don't want it to stick. You want it to be full of flour and perfect, and not sticking no more to your board or not sticking to your rolling pin. And you just keep adding flour till it doesn't stick anymore. And then you roll it out nice and thin, and then you'll cut it into little squares. Tristan, my friend Tristan, he likes noodles to be just little squares, like little dumplings. And so I started doing it that way, and you know what? I kind of like it that way, because they are small enough. They fit about on the head of a spoon, you know. And this is just a little bit. And what I do is I make them, and then I so here's my little bowl that I'm going to cut them in. And you see, you just cut them into little bite-sized pieces and throw them in the bowl. Cover them with flour so they don't stick to one another. And those are going to sit there until I'm ready to put them into the broth. But that'll be a while. Now remember that, you know, the noodles you buy in the store, they've already been dried. So, and you're just going to cut them into little squares like that. Little bite size. And these will expand a little bit in the water. And they don't have to be perfect because they're homemade. If you want to get anal, you can make them perfect, but I like them just to look like homemade noodles. Not all the same size. And you know that that's come from my table. And you keep doing that until you've used up all the dough. Okay? Making little bite-sized noodles. I ought to call Tristan and tell him I made chicken and dumplings. See, he sure does love it. And he did come over and fix my computer. I always tell him I owe him every time he does that. Okay, and so there is the bowl of noodles. And it may not look much, but that's going to make a lot of noodles. You wait. When I toss them in, after I've deboned the chicken and all that, that's going to be enough to fill that pot. Okay, so after you have boiled the chicken, you're going to remove the chicken from the pot and put it in a bowl and let it cool down. Okay? And you're going to increase the heat a little on the pot so that it starts to boil again. And when it comes back to a rolling boil, which won't take very long, you're going to get the little bowl of noodles. Remember that? And you're going to start dropping them in there in the boiling water. And the extra flour that is all over the outside of them is going to thicken this stew, this stuff. After you've added a few, then stir it so they don't stick to the bottom. They'll start to cook a little. Ow. A bit more. Splashed on myself. These are not cold, but they're cool, and so it's going to cool the water down below boiling. And so, as you're putting them in, you know, if you let the water come back to a boil, it helps them not stick so much. See, as I said before, that little bit is going to almost fill up that pot with noodles. And then you're going to take the chicken after it's cooled, debone it from the bone, and put all the chicken back in the pot away from the bone. Okay, and there you have it. A nice, good white trash lunch of chicken and noodles, a little bit of canned pears, and a glass of milk. That's